What if the woman you ordered as your bride arrived broken, bruised, and running from the very people sworn to protect her? What if she didn't come for love, but for safety? And what if the past refused to let her go? This is the story of a lonely cowboy, a frightened woman, and the promise that changed both their lives forever. The letter arrived on a cold Tuesday morning, its edges damp and carrying the faint scent of lavender. Nathaniel Reed sat beside the narrow window of his log cabin in the Montana Territory, staring at the envelope as if it might vanish if he blinked. Outside, the early spring wind rattled the loose shutters, still carrying the last bite of winter. The year was 1883. For 8 long years, Nathaniel had lived alone. Silence had become his closest companion, but that letter, it stirred something inside him he had buried long ago. Hope. He opened it slowly, his rough hands trembling. He had written to the mail-order bride agency 2 months earlier during a moment of weakness, after the harshest winter he had ever endured. He had not truly believed anyone would answer, yet the words were clear. Miss Zoe Caldwell of Boston would arrive in Silverdale on the last Thursday of May, 3 days from now. Nathaniel read the letter again and again until the words blurred. His heart beat faster than it had in years. "What have I done?" he muttered. What if she saw him and left? What if she regretted everything the moment she stepped off the coach? He looked around his cabin. It was clean enough for a man, but for a woman, for a wife. The next days passed in a storm of preparation. He scrubbed the floors until his knuckles bled. He washed the curtains in the icy creek. He aired blankets, repaired chairs, and even attempted baking bread. The result was hard enough to break teeth, but he set it aside anyway. He borrowed a mattress from the general store. He trimmed his beard and cut his hair with a knife in front of his cracked mirror. The man staring back was not handsome. His face was sun-worn, his shoulders broad from labor, his blue eyes lined with years of hardship. But he was steady, and he was kind. He hoped that would be enough. Thursday dawned bright and clear. Nathaniel rode the 7 miles to Silverdale with his stomach in knots. The town was little more than dust, wooden buildings, and curious eyes. Frank Wilson, who ran the stage line, greeted him with a grin. "Heard you're getting married." Nathaniel muttered something in reply. "Brave woman," Frank added. Nathaniel couldn't tell if it was a joke. The coach was late. Every passing minute tightened his chest. He almost left. He almost ran. Then a cloud of dust appeared. The stagecoach rolled in. And everything changed. The driver threw down a small trunk and helped the woman step off. She was slender, dressed in a travel-worn blue gown and a small hat with a veil. She stood very still, scanning the crowd. Nathaniel stepped forward. "Miss Caldwell?" She turned. Slowly she lifted the veil. His breath stopped. She was beautiful. But her cheek was bruised. A cut marked her lip. Fear lived in her eyes. "Yes," she said softly. "Mr. Reed?" He nodded. She noticed his stare and lowered her gaze. "I can explain," she whispered, handing him a note. "You may wish to reconsider." He read the letter. It spoke of harm, of escape, of safety. When he finished, he looked at her again. "Who hurt you?" he asked quietly. "It doesn't matter," she said. "I understand if you send me back." Nathaniel folded the paper. "You're not alone now." She stared at him in shock. "You still want me?" "I want you safe," he replied. "The rest can wait." For the first time, hope flickered in her eyes. The ride home was silent. Zoe sat stiffly in front of him, flinching at every sudden movement. When they reached the ridge, Nathaniel showed her the valley. The creek, the barn, the small growing garden. "It isn't much," he said. "It's beautiful," she answered. And he believed her. Days passed. Zoe worked quietly but tirelessly. She cleaned, cooked, planted, and brought warmth to the cabin. Wildflowers appeared. Fresh bread replaced his ruined loaves. She laughed once when he burned his hand. The sound stayed with him all day. Slowly her bruises faded. Her smile returned. But fear still lived beneath the surface. One evening she told him the truth. Her uncle. The forced marriage. The violence. The escape. Nathaniel listened without interrupting. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. "You're safe here," he said. She wanted to believe him. Summer came, and with it, peace. Trust grew. They talked late into the night. They worked side by side. They began to look for each other in every room. One evening, Zoe stood barefoot in the garden, sunlight in her hair. Nathaniel realized he was no longer lonely. Then the past returned. In Silverdale, the sheriff warned them. Her uncle was searching, offering money. Fear returned like a storm. For weeks, Nathaniel watched the horizon with his rifle close. But no one came. Autumn arrived. One evening, Zoe spoke. "I want to be your wife, not because I have to. Because I choose you." Nathaniel's heart nearly stopped. They married the next morning in the small church. No guests, no music, just promise. And peace. Winter locked them away. Spring brought a miracle. "A daughter, Amelia," Zoe whispered. Nathaniel held his family and knew his life had changed forever. Years later, when their land flourished and their children laughed beneath the Montana sky, Nathaniel still remembered that dusty day. The day a frightened woman stepped off a stagecoach. The day hope returned. And every night, as the stars filled the sky, he whispered the same promise. "You're not alone. Not ever again." The first sign was the dust. Nathaniel saw it from the ridge just before sunset. 3 riders. Too deliberate to be travelers, too steady to be lost. His stomach tightened. He didn't say anything at first. Zoe was inside, kneeling beside Amelia's cradle, humming softly. The cabin glowed warm with lamplight, peaceful, fragile. He stepped inside quietly. "Zoe," she looked up instantly. She always heard the change in his voice. "What is it?" "Riders, 3 of them. Half a mile out." The color drained from her face. "He found me." Nathaniel crossed the room in 2 strides and knelt in front of her. "Listen to me. You and Amelia go into the root cellar. Stay there until I come for you." Her hand grabbed his sleeve. "No, I won't hide while you're not hiding," he said firmly. "You're protecting our daughter." Her breathing shook. Then she nodded. Nathaniel helped her lift Amelia, kissed his child's forehead once. Then Zoe's. "I'll keep my promise," he whispered. "You're not alone." The riders reached the yard at dusk. The man in the center dismounted first. Tall, gray streaked through his dark hair, expensive coat despite the dust. Uncle Henry Caldwell. His eyes were cold. "So this is where you've been hiding," he said, surveying the cabin with disdain. Nathaniel stepped onto the porch, rifle resting casually in his hands. "She's not hiding." Henry's gaze shifted. "And you must be the cowboy who thinks he owns her now." "I don't own her," Nathaniel replied evenly. "She's my wife." Henry smiled thinly. "There's no official record in Boston." "There is one in Silverdale," Nathaniel answered. "Sheriff can confirm it." Henry's expression darkened. "You don't understand, boy. She belongs to my family. Her inheritance belongs to my family." Nathaniel felt something click into place. This wasn't about honor. It was about money. "She's not property," Nathaniel said quietly. One of the other men shifted, resting his hand near his holster. Henry stepped forward. "I'll make this simple. Send her out. I'll take her home. No one gets hurt." Nathaniel lifted the rifle slightly. "You'll leave, now." Silence stretched. Wind moved through the grass. Henry's patience snapped first. "Take him." The gunfire exploded into the evening. Nathaniel fired first. The man on the left dropped into the dirt with a cry. The second man shot back, splintering wood from the porch railing. Nathaniel moved fast, not reckless, but steady. Years of survival had sharpened him. Another shot. The second rider fell. Now it was just Henry. The older man's face twisted with rage. "You think you can steal from me?" "She chose to leave," Nathaniel said. Henry drew his revolver. The shot rang out. Pain tore through Nathaniel's shoulder as he stumbled back, hitting the cabin wall. Blood soaked through his shirt. Henry advanced. You were nothing before her. You'll be nothing after. Before he could fire again, a second gunshot cracked through the air. Henry froze, then collapsed. Behind him, standing near the barn with trembling hands but steady aim, Zoe. Smoke curled from the small revolver she held. Her face was pale, but her eyes were fierce. Henry lay still in the dirt. Silence returned. Nathaniel sank to his knees. Zoe ran to him. You're hurt. It's clean, he gritted through clenched teeth. Through the shoulder. Her hands shook as she pressed cloth against the wound. I didn't want to kill him, she whispered. You didn't, Nathaniel said softly. You saved us. Sheriff Blackwood arrived an hour later, drawn by distant gunfire. He surveyed the scene quietly. Well, he muttered, nudging Henry with his boot. Seems the past finally caught up with itself. He looked at Zoe. Ma'am, you acted in defense of your husband and child. That's the end of it. Zoe nodded slowly. The sheriff arranged to have the bodies taken away. By midnight, the valley was silent again. Inside the cabin, Nathaniel lay on the bed while Zoe stitched his shoulder with careful hands. You could have stayed hidden, he said. She met his eyes. I'm not that frightened girl anymore. He smiled faintly despite the pain. No, you're not. She leaned down, pressing her forehead gently to his. You kept your promise. So did you. Weeks passed. Nathaniel healed. The valley returned to peace. But something had changed. Not fear. Strength. Zoe no longer flinched at shadows. She walked the land with confidence. She laughed louder. She stood taller. And one evening, as they watched Amelia sleep, Zoe spoke softly. I used to think running away made me weak. Nathaniel brushed her hair back gently. It made you brave. She looked at him, eyes shining. You gave me a home. But you also gave me something else. What's that? A reason to fight. He pulled her close carefully, mindful of his healing shoulder. You were never alone. She smiled. And I never will be. Outside, the Montana stars stretched endlessly above them. The land was still wild. Life was still uncertain. But inside that cabin, beneath that sky, they had built something stronger than fear. Stronger than the past, a family. And this time, nothing would take it from them. 15 years passed like a quiet river. The Montana Valley had changed. The one small homestead had grown into a thriving ranch. The cabin was larger now, with a wide porch and fields stretching far beyond the creek. Horses grazed in the distance, and laughter echoed across the land. But some things had not changed. Every night, Nathaniel Reed still checked the horizon before sleep. Every night, Zoe Reed still listened to the wind. And every morning, they thanked God for peace. Their daughter, Amelia, had grown into that peace. She was strong, fearless, and stubborn in ways that reminded Nathaniel of Zoe. Her hair shone like sunlight, and her eyes were the same fierce green that had once stared down a man with a revolver in trembling hands. She rode like she had been born in a saddle. She could mend fences, break horses, and shoot better than most men in Silverdale. But what Nathaniel loved most was her heart. She believed the world could still be kind. One evening, as the sun sank behind the mountains, Amelia rode back toward the ranch faster than usual. Nathaniel noticed immediately. He set down his tools and waited. She slid from her horse, her face pale. Pa, there are men in town asking about us. Zoe froze in the doorway. What kind of men? Nathaniel asked calmly. They said they were from Boston, Amelia said. They were asking about the Reed family. And about you, Ma. The past, Nathaniel thought. Always the past. That night, the house felt heavy. They must be connected to your uncle, Zoe whispered. He's been dead 15 years, Nathaniel said. Men like him leave shadows, she replied. Nathaniel nodded slowly. We'll face it together. Amelia sat beside them. I'm not a child anymore, whatever this is. I stand with you. Nathaniel looked at his daughter and felt both pride and fear. The men arrived 2 days later. 5 of them, well-dressed, but with the hard eyes of hired guns. Their leader introduced himself as Mr. Caldwell, a cousin. A man who claimed legal rights to Zoe's inheritance, and now that Zoe's uncle was gone, intended to reclaim it. "It belongs to our family," he said smoothly. "And so does the land you built from it?" Zoe stepped forward. "This land was never yours. You married a rancher and vanished," he replied. "But the law is very clear." Nathaniel saw the threat behind the words. "If not through force, then through courts. If not through law, then through violence." That night, Amelia sat on the porch beside her father. "Are we going to lose everything?" Nathaniel looked at the land. "No." She studied his face. "You're not afraid of them." "I've faced worse." She hesitated. "I want to help." He turned to her. "You already are." But Amelia had her own plan. The next morning, she rode into Silverdale alone. She spoke to Sheriff Blackwood, now old but still sharp. She gathered every record of her parents' marriage, every witness, every proof. Then she did something unexpected. She wrote to Boston, to lawyers, to newspapers, to people who had once known Zoe's uncle's cruelty. Within weeks, letters returned, testimonies, evidence, truth. When the cousin returned, confident and smiling, he found the sheriff waiting. And half the town. And legal documents proving fraud, abuse, and stolen wealth. The man's smile vanished. "You've made a mistake," he warned. Amelia stepped forward. "No," she said steadily. "You did." For a moment it seemed violence would follow. Hands moved toward guns. But Sheriff Blackwood spoke first. "You try anything here, you'll hang." The men left. And this time they did not come back. That evening, the Reed family sat together as the sun painted the sky gold. Zoe looked at her daughter with shining eyes. "You ended it," Amelia smiled. "You and Pa taught me how to fight. Just differently." Nathaniel laughed softly. "You're stronger than both of us." She shook her head. "No, I just grew up in the home you built." Years later, when Nathaniel and Zoe grew old and watched their grandchildren run through the fields, Amelia often remembered that day. The day she realized courage did not always mean pulling a trigger. Sometimes it meant standing tall. Sometimes it meant telling the truth. And sometimes it meant protecting the people you loved with everything you had. One night, as the Montana stars filled the sky, Amelia sat beside her parents. Nathaniel's voice was softer now, but steady. "Do you remember what I told your mother the first day we met?" Amelia nodded. "You said she wasn't alone." Nathaniel smiled. "And neither are you." Zoe took Amelia's hand. "And neither will your children be." The wind moved gently across the valley. The past was finally quiet. The future was wide and endless. And the promise that had begun with a frightened woman and a lonely cowboy lived on, stronger than ever. They were not alone, not then, not now, not ever again. The valley had never looked more beautiful than it did the summer Amelia Reed turned 20. Golden light rolled across the fields. The creek shimmered. The ranch stood strong, larger now, thriving, alive. Nathaniel walked slower these days. His shoulders were still broad, but time had carved deeper lines into his face. Zoe's hair carried silver threads, yet her eyes remained the same fierce green that had once stared down danger. And Amelia. She had grown into something remarkable. Strong like her father, unbreakable like her mother, kind in a way the world rarely deserved. He arrived on a windy afternoon. Daniel Harper. A schoolteacher from Silverdale, not a gunslinger, not a rancher. Not a man trying to prove himself, just steady. Nathaniel watched him from the porch as he helped Amelia down from her horse. He noticed the way Daniel waited for her to speak first. The way he listened. The way he never touched her without permission. Nathaniel grunted softly. Zoe smiled beside him. "You did the same thing with me," she whispered. "That was different." "It wasn't," she replied. Daniel began visiting often. He spoke about books, about building a proper schoolhouse, about teaching children to read beyond survival. Amelia listened like the world was opening in front of her. One evening, Nathaniel found them sitting by the creek. They weren't touching, they were laughing. That scared him more than anything. Later that night, Amelia sat beside her father on the porch. "You don't trust him," she said gently. Nathaniel leaned back in his chair. "I don't trust anyone with my daughter," she smiled faintly. "You trusted Mao. That nearly got me killed." She reached for his hand. "I'm not running from anything. I'm choosing." Those words struck him. Choosing, just like Zoe once had. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon Daniel rode up alone. He removed his hat before stepping onto the porch. "Mr. Reed," he said respectfully, voice steady but nervous, "I would like your blessing to court your daughter properly." Nathaniel studied him in silence. "What can you offer her?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Honesty, respect, a partnership. I won't try to cage her. I won't try to own her. I just want to stand beside her." The wind moved softly through the grass. Nathaniel saw no arrogance, no greed, just sincerity. "She's stronger than you," Nathaniel said. "I know," Daniel replied. "That's why I love her." The word lingered in the air. Love. Nathaniel exhaled slowly. "You hurt her," he said quietly, "and I won't use a courtroom." Daniel swallowed. "I understand." After a long pause, "You have my blessing." The wedding took place beneath the wide Montana sky. No grand church this time, no dust-filled saloon. Just open land, friends, family, laughter. Zoe stood beside Amelia, adjusting her simple white dress. Not extravagant, not fragile, strong. Nathaniel walked his daughter across the field. His steps were slow but firm. When he placed her hand into Daniel's, he felt the same ache he had felt the day Zoe stepped off that stagecoach. Fear, hope, faith. Amelia leaned up and whispered, "I'm not alone." Nathaniel smiled, eyes shining. "You never were." Years passed again. Children filled the ranch. Daniel built the schoolhouse he had dreamed of. Amelia taught alongside him. Zoe became the quiet heart of every gathering, and Nathaniel sat often on the porch, watching it all. One evening, as the sky burned gold and the grandchildren chased fireflies, he felt Zoe sit beside him. "You kept your promise," she said softly. He looked at her. "No," he replied. "We did." She rested her head against his shoulder. "I was so afraid that first day." "I know. And you weren't." He smiled faintly. "I was terrified." She laughed quietly. The same laugh that had filled an empty cabin decades ago. That night, beneath a sky full of stars, Nathaniel held Zoe's hand as he had done thousands of times before. "Do you regret it?" he asked gently. "Coming here?" "Yes." She turned to him, eyes bright even in the darkness. "Never." The wind moved softly across the valley. The same land that had once felt lonely now echoed with generations of life. Nathaniel closed his eyes. He could still see her stepping off that stagecoach. Bruised, frightened, brave, and he could still hear the words he had spoken. "You're not alone now." In the years that followed, when Nathaniel finally grew too tired to walk the fields, Amelia would sit beside him and read aloud just as Zoe once had. And when the time came for him to rest for the last time, he was not alone. Zoe held one hand, Amelia the other. The valley was quiet, peaceful. Nathaniel's final whisper was simple. Not alone, and he wasn't. Long after, when children ran through those same fields and laughter filled the Montana air, the story of Nathaniel and Zoe Reed was told often, not as a tale of violence, not as a tale of fear, but as a story of a promise kept. In a land known for hardship and solitude, they built something stronger than either. They built a home. And under the endless western sky that promise still lived. Not alone. Not ever again.